The mystery writer died, unexpectedly shocking the cause of his death. The modus operandi of the murderer in the pen is exactly the same. Susan is a senior editor working with the victim, Alan. That day, he picked up a new manuscript and flipped through it. The new manuscript is Alan's new book, The Magpie Murder. He is the last installment in the series of Detective Bond novels. Once this set of mystery novels came out, it set off a frenzy in the book market. Susan flipped through it with interest. You're totally lost in the story. Unfortunately, the book in his hand is just a printed manuscript. Just as the real culprit behind the scenes is about to be revealed, the text on the typescript stopped abruptly. Only blank paper remains, like a deliberate suspense tease Susan's heart. This kind of unfinished manuscript, it can't pass the review. The next day, Susan came to the publishing house with the scraps. He wants to meet his contract author, Alan. But what I got was the sad news that Alan fell to his death. The boss said the two also had dinner together on Thursday. I didn't expect to be gone today. The boss also showed Susan a letter. The letter arrived this morning. Sender is Alan. He apologized to his boss for the disagreement at Thursday's dinner and said he had cancer. He also claimed that the moment the boss received the letter, it's all over now. And he also ushered in earth-shattering winds. The contents of the suicide note made Susan feel familiar. His mind, I can't help but float into the world of that new novel. The story is set in a rural area in 1955. The protagonist is named Bond, is a well-known detective. Coincidentally, he also had cancer. In addition to that, he also said something similar to Alan. No one needs to apologize. He's content to have lived until now. But Susan was just taken aback for a moment. Not too much doubt. Perhaps Alan, as the author long ago with Pound in the pen, have some kind of special connection. Only let Pound live and die with him to meet his expectations for character creation. I haven't waited for Susan to figure out the situation. A police officer comes to the door. He went through everything. On Thursday, Alan came out to have dinner with his boss. The two then had a heated argument Friday. Alan wrote this letter, then accidentally fell off the building on Saturday. Susan looked at the letter again. The handwriting on the letter belongs to Alan. Karen has never tried this writing style. In addition to that, the writing on the outside of the envelope is printed, but the letters were handwritten. So this suggests a possibility. Alan may have been framed by someone else and created the illusion of accidental death. However, the police ignored his speculation. Susan is not annoyed. Alan had nothing more than a professional connection with him. He just wanted to find Alan. Ask about the lost last chapter of the novel. The boss said that may be a flaw in the printing process. The most useful way at the moment is to find Alan's manuscript for this highly anticipated novel can be sold. Susan said nothing. Drive to the countryside found Alan's hometown, but who would have thought that roads were being built here? Traffic jams in remote areas. Fortunately, Susan's sister lives not far away. She chose to visit her sister's house first. Sister is a relative of Alan. When Alan was a teacher, her children were Ellen's students. Sister told Susan she and Alan hadn't seen each other for 2 years. The sisters exchanged pleasantries for a moment. Susan found Alan's lawyer again. According to the lawyer, Saturday, 10 minutes, Alan contacted him. The purpose is to change the will, but who would have thought? When the lawyer came to visit on Sunday, he was greeted by a corpse, and that's why. A will can only be made as before. In addition to that, the lawyer also told Susan Alan's date is named Taylor. He is still living at Alan's house. And when Alan came home on Saturday, I was trying to get Taylor out of the house. Then he called his lawyer to amend the will. Right after Alan passed away, Taylor went home again, as if nothing had happened. Susan explained to Taylor the manuscript has no ending. Taylor said the printer must have malfunctioned. Because he has seen Alan wrote the final chapter, however, he did not pay attention to the content of the manuscript. Plus, the manuscript is missing. He can only check it on Alan's computer. Alan's code uses a word formation method. When the name of the novel's protagonist, Atticus Pound, take it apart and put it back together in a different order. Taylor easily cracked login, but the computer folder is also empty. Taylor comforts Susan it's not a big deal. Alan's sister used to be Alan's assistant. He can go to his sister's place to inquire. In conversation, Susan also learns that Alan has made many enemies. He had a conflict with his sister. There were arguments with a lot of people. There is a feng shui treasure in the village. It's a beautiful place. Everybody loves it. And Alan wants to transform this place. This led to disputes with neighbors and real estate developers. If the person who killed Alan is to be held accountable, then there must be many suspects. Susan walked out the door, puzzled. Accidentally found long drag marks on the grass. He didn't think much of it. Come to Ellen's sister's house. Unfortunately, my sister doesn't know the content of this novel. He said he had never read the manuscript. Meet the police before little fat passed by here. He was looking for Ellen's sister. It turns out that sister Alan married a police officer. So I also know Xiaopeng. Susan recalled again the content of Alan's novel again. The coincidence of the matter, Pound didn't quit his job after suffering from cancer. He took over a serial murder case, a housekeeper in a jazz home fell to her death, but no one knows because the host family is on vacation. Then the gardener passed by the housekeeper's body was found. The police held a trial for the incident involving the housekeeper, determined that this was caused by the housekeeper's accidental fall, but it wasn't that simple. Neighbors revealed something. The housekeeper had a falling out with her son a few days ago. The son immediately put a vicious curse on his mother, so he's very suspicious. But the son's girlfriend argued the two of them have been inseparable these days. Never been to Jazz's house. There is no chance of committing a crime, but the neighbors were dubious. Detective Bond has been asked to take charge of the case. He interrogated several people. Only then did I learn that the housekeeper was very strict with her son. They wouldn't even let their son go out without a report. In addition to that, the housekeeper is racist son's girlfriend because of black skin, just ridiculed by the housekeeper for being useless. He thinks his girlfriend is with his son. It will contaminate the bloodline of future generations. To protect his girlfriend, the son contradicted the housekeeper. The mother and son began to quarrel, violently pound, had no reaction after listening gossip in the town. They just need to let time just eliminate the prejudice of everyone, and that was the end of the case. But who knows, it's not over yet. A few days later, there was a story in the newspaper. Jazz just finished a vacation. He was killed with a sword now. Bond now realizes the seriousness of the case. He and his assistant came forward to investigate the case. On the night of the incident, Jazz was the only one in the family. Then the Jazz's wife returned body found the sword used by the murderer came from their collection of armor. He also learned that the house was invaded by thieves a few days ago. The thief stole the antiques from the study. The police concluded that the thief lurks in the house. Just when he wanted to steal again, unexpectedly, I was bumped into by the Jazz, so the thief got angry. Murder. Although the safe has been opened, nothing is lost. Detective Bond began to observe the details around him. The place where Jazz died, location, near the door and armor, and the killer was able to access the armor. Then it means that the reason why the Jazz came here, to send the murderer away, but he didn't expect the guest behind him actually picked up the sword, attacked him from behind while he was unprepared. Can let the Jazz deliver guests like this. It must not be a strange thief. It's real-world friends. Immediately after Bond dug up a piece of paper from the ashes in the fireplace, the paper was stained with blood. This is the blood of Jazz. This proves that the murderer is after the murder ran to the fireplace and destroyed the paper. Immediately after, the police found a letter in Jazz's study. The content of the letter is, if you want to live here, then the plan has to be reviewed anyway. You can't escape. Bond studied the letter carefully, found something strange. The body of the letter is printed. The words on the outer package of the envelope are handwritten. Then Bond found the Jazz's wife. The wife told the crowd Jazz wanted to build a paradise in the mountains. Neighbors in the mountain forest rise up to fight. Due to the large number of people involved, the wife only identified the most suspect. That's the Jazz girl. The sister and the sister are a pair of dragons and phoenixes. My sister has loved the natural scenery of the mountains and forests since she was a child. After hearing that my brother wants to build a house in it, I was dissatisfied. Doing so is damaging to the environment. It was he who found the Jazz repeatedly persuade him to give up building a mountain villa, but the Jazz ignored it. After listening to this, Pound immediately found the Jazz's sister. The sister claims that she is not the murderer, but he brought up his resentment against his brother. He doesn't understand. Two people in the same room, but with two very different fates. My brother enjoys the family's sky-high wealth. I have nothing. But he doesn't know how to be content. Instead, he also stared at the family's mountains and forests. The story returns to the real world. Susan thinks about the similarities between reality and fiction. Feeling cold on my back. Alan is like a Jazz in a novel, make enemies everywhere, and the characters in the novel seems to be similar to reality. The threatening letter that Alan received also the same as the letter received by the Jazz. Duplicity. What is hidden behind all the signs? Susan was puzzled. Soon it was midnight. Susan is staying at her sister's house temporarily. Detective Kant comes to mind. He can't help but start thinking Kant's way to review the case. Alan's home is completely empty. It's like burnt paper from a Jazz fireplace, signaling that someone must have been there when Alan died. In addition to that, that suicide note is also worth exploring. Maybe you can find it by reading it a few more times. Maybe it wasn't really a suicide note. So the next morning, Susan hurried back to the publishing house. He read the letter carefully and silently suddenly realized the contents of the letter revealed that he had surrendered to fate. And in the novel The Magpie Murder, he wrote all the characters into it. But the only part that doesn't reveal the murderer, that must be because someone discovered this fact, and he took this one. The boss began to reflect. I haven't visited Alan in a long time. He remembered the dinner on Thursday. The boss wanted to rename the novel The Magpie Murder, but Alan didn't want to live or die. Immediately after, a waiter stared straight at them. The plate in his hand fell to the ground, but the boss doesn't know why. To find out the truth, Susan and her boss decided on the day Alan was buried visit his house in person, so full of questions, and Susan went home. She also has her boyfriend's Beard at home. Beard is a teacher, used to be a colleague with Alan. More coincidentally, Alan's ex-wife was also his ex-boyfriend. The Beard told Susan about his future plans. He wants to quit his job as a teacher, return to your home country to do business. This moment, he's inviting Susan to go with him. But Susan was stunned for a moment. Beards were doing ordinary things. Where's the venture capital? The Beard is not angry after listening. Frankly, explain his relatives lent him some money. Wave after wave. The Beard thing over there hasn't been resolved yet here. Sister Susan told Susan again, their father fell very ill. There's not much time left. Susan doesn't have many memories of her father in her mind. I only remember that my father left his wife and children when he was young. Now my sister persuaded Susan to see her father one last time. There is an explanation. Susan is in a dilemma. The characters in the novel at the moment make her envious because every character in the novel finally. You can get on your own path. Thinking room. The image of Detective Bond reappeared in his mind. He reminded Susan the content of the book is not the most important. He needs to figure out the purpose of the author's arrangement. Also note that hearing is false, seeing is believing. The next day, The Lonely Mountain came to Alan before his death restaurant with the boss. Then, I found the waiter. The waiter also had a dream of writing a novel. Due to low attention, he started living beyond his means. A long time ago. In order to improve his writing skills, I specially bought the teaching course at a high price. Alan was one of those teachers. In the classroom, the waiter explained his idea to Alan. He wants to write a suspense novel. It's called The Magpie Murder. And he would go on and on about his inspiration. Unexpectedly, his mentor actually copied the original name, wrote the novel intact. Even if the waiter wants to resist, they don't have the support of the people. Because Alan's first few novels were big hits. But he didn't have anything to show for it. Thursday dinner day, the waiter saw Alan again, with all his attention focused on Alan, constantly recalling the past in my mind. So, didn't notice the hot plate in my hand was overturned. Susan thinks this might be a way to see the ending of the novel, but after receiving the waiter's novel manuscript, he was utterly disappointed. Although Alan copied the title of the waiter's book, but the content has obviously been adapted, make it more profitable, and he had to marvel at Alan's gift for books. Alan's funeral went ahead as planned. Susan and her boss went to attend as planned. According to previous reasoning, anyone who can kill Alan must be a real-world friend, so the murderer must be here. Alan's popularity in his life has been terrible. His ex-wife and son hated him. Because of his betrayal, the significant other quickly sold his estate. After his death, Alan's sister is angry about getting her inheritance. Outraged. Funeral ceremony, the ex-wife revealed an important news. Alan is not a fan of mystery novels. I don't like to write mystery novels. His first two novels were both serious literature. They didn't respond very well. It was his ex-wife who recommended him to try mystery novels that set him on a bright path, and Susan looked at everybody in the audience, thinking about the possibility that they are murderers. Everyone's experience is very familiar. You just have to put them in the context of the novel. The story travels back to the world of fiction after Pound talks to Jazz's sister. Didn't get any clues. He left the house of his Jazz sister. Jazz's reputation in the mouth of the neighbors is extremely poor. He once cheated on his wife, let the son's tutor conceive his own child. But here's the strange thing. Unlike other supporting roles, tutoring has specific nicknames in the novel named Dolly. Although the wife drove away the tutor, but the child survived. So, he decided to amend his will, let the illegitimate child also get a share. The gardener at home seems to be diligent. I also have a lot of hatred for Jazz, sir. Well, the thief, burglary, and the death of the housekeeper, it was the gardener's fault. That's it. Domineering and unreasonable. Jazz won the following of the housekeeper, mother and son. It turns out that Jazz sympathizes with their family, living in poverty, often subsidized their household expenses. He also provided a job for the housekeeper's son, Ronaldinho, but the housekeeper's husband hated Jazz. The housekeeper is able to take good care of the Jazz family, willing to live in a Jazz's house. The children went with their mothers. It was not their father who accompanied the brothers by their side, it was Jazz. With the existence of Jazz, the housekeeper's husband thinks he doesn't exist that year. The Jazz took out a gold coin hidden him in the forest as a reward. Ronaldinho's brother couldn't find it. After searching for a long time, he plunged into the lake to find, and after a while, I stopped breathing. The gardener found him and fished him out. Ronaldinho also rushed into the lake in a hurry. Due to the couple, I prefer Ronaldinho's younger brother more on weekdays. Ronaldinho's brother died. The housekeeper's husband divorced the housekeeper, and that's why. The housekeeper is so strict with his son, and Jazz still takes good care of Ronaldinho. No clue. Bond returned to the house where the butler lived. It's a log cabin in the Jazz's house. On the way, Bond saw an antique store by the roadside. He was attracted to the past. Inside the window are many exquisite silver antiques. Bond intuitively decided this is related to the lost antiques in the Jazz's house, so he came closer to talk to the shopkeeper. The owner doesn't want to get involved in the case. I can only tell Pound the truth. One of the antiques was sold by a Jazz gardener. Then Bond confronted the gardener again. The gardener has no room to quibble, but he didn't steal the Jazz's treasure. This is all seen by the lake. Then they came to the lake. In the forest next to it stood a wooden house for the housekeeper. Bond first assumed that the thief was stealing indoors, then ran here, but this route doesn't fit the thief's escape route, therefore cannot be established. Think of this. Bond thinks there must be something hidden at the bottom of the lake, so let the police search. There are indeed many antiques hidden at the bottom of the lake. All were lost at the Jazz's house that day. Then Bond went into the housekeeper's cabin. Walking to the second floor, he found the window here. You can clearly observe the scene by the lake. Bond rummaged around the room for a while. It didn't take long to find it in the drawer. A diary the housekeeper recorded a lot of things here. He wrote in it. Jazz's own sister wrote a threatening letter to Jazz because he had seen his Jazz sister deliver the letter with his own eyes. The diary also records Jazz's wife also betrayed her husband. She uses her husband's money to support other men. Bond took a few more people to the house of Jazz's sister. See Pound. So sure, Jazz's sister no longer hides. The threatening letter came from his own hands, but he's not a murderer. As for the death of the housekeeper, he didn't know. Then Bond went to the Jazz's house again. Jazz's wife didn't care about the affair. He also said he was not the murderer, because on the day the housekeeper died, he is on vacation with the Jazz, plus the day Jazz died, I'm not at home either. Since the housekeeper knew about her affair, therefore Jazz's wife made a long-distance call home from outside to warn the housekeeper not to tell the secret. However, no one answered the phone that day until I got home. He only found out that the housekeeper had died. Alan's funeral will be over soon, but Luss and remembered her father, who was about to die, decided to visit the hospital. Looking at the dying man in front of me, Susan decided to put aside her past grievances. Father says he doesn't need to forgive anything. He also claims to be in love with his cheating partner. He's a nanny. After Susan heard this, he left the hospital in anger. The entrance to the hospital, Susan remembered Detective Bond again. He recounted his experience to the pound in his heart, and then I realized. His parents are also included in the novel. The prototype of Jazz in fiction is not Alan, but his own father. Jazz derailed tutor named Dolly. Alan loved semantic word formation, so it seems just split the English name of Dolly and then sequence them to get the last name of the Susan family. As for why did Alan bring their family's affairs? Write a novel? That's because Susan has always been perfect. He strictly demanded that Alan revise the manuscript in order to achieve the intention of hot sales. This approach goes against Alan's wishes. Plus, they have worked together 8 times before and after, so it's not hard to explain why Alan hates him so much. A few years ago, Alan met Susan's sister. He deliberately approached Sister Susan, learned a lot about the family. Then the story was incorporated into the novel. Suddenly, a bell broke the tense atmosphere. A mysterious person sent Susan a photo. There's this guy pushing Alan really hard. And that was Susan's boyfriend, Beard. Before Susan got confused, Alan's date, Taylor, found him. Alan kicked Taylor out on Saturday. Taylor just left on the front foot. Ellen's sister is here on the back foot. Therefore, he believes that Ellen's sister must hold the content of the last chapter of the novel. Susan finished listening. Immediately go to visit sister. Alan's sister told him he burned the novel long ago because he worked hard to help his brother develop his career. The younger brother said nothing. Didn't hear. The younger brother wants to write about the role of a police officer. Sister doesn't say a word. Introduced the police officer Xiaoping to him, but he turned chubby into a funny character. The reason why my sister came to my brother's house on Saturday to make peace with my brother, then take the opportunity to apply for a job position. After entering the house, he casually flips through the Magpie murders, but I found myself in it in the novel. He is Jazz. My sister has no share of the property, living in an old slum, and he was furious. Pick up the manuscript and throw it into the fire. The trail breaks again. Susan is looking for a boyfriend again. The Beard confessed everything. The reason why he has the money to do business, because he had borrowed money from Alan. He knew that Alan was not on good terms with Susan. That's why he hid it. Saturday night, he drove up to Alan's house. Alan had no intention of borrowing money. Instead, he insulted the Beard. The Beard doesn't care. It's perfectly normal not to borrow. And he gets up and he's leaving. In order to prevent his girlfriend from getting angry after finding out, Beard, please, Alan, keep this a secret. And Alan realized that Beard and Susan are a couple. Suddenly changed my mind. Pull a Beard and give him money. After signing the loan agreement, Alan came to the roof with a Beard. Here it is. Beard reaches out to hug Alan sincerely, but it was photographed by someone with a heart and used this as evidence to kill Alan. Susan went back to the publishing house. The boss saw him frown. I told him what I thought. They can get another writer. Finished the last one. In conversation, he emphasized the title of the book, The Magpie Murder. This aroused Susan's curiosity. Why wasn't Alan allowed to add letters to the title of a book? Then he remembered Alan's computer password and the name of the tutor in the novel. I found that they all use semantic word formation. Therefore, Susan started doing the same thing to Yuan Shuming. Finally, I came up with a word that means word building game. That is to say, this entire novel, it's one big game of meaning. Susan remembered something the first time he asked when the last novel falls. An assistant answered him. But wait until he wants to find. When I arrived at the assistant, I found that he had already resigned, so he found an assistant in various ways. After the two talked, they found out the manuscript of the novel was sent to the publishing house on Wednesday. The assistant will copy it as soon as he receives it. Then the deal was made to the boss. But the boss lied to Susan that the manuscript didn't arrive until Thursday. In addition to that, the assistant said that he was fired by the boss. The Beard reopened on the other side. That picture of Alan hugging, he shows that it was copied to his phone. Then I asked someone to help investigate. He found out that the source of the photo was the publisher. Now both Susan and the Beard react. The boss is the real murderer. Susan snuck into the office late at night. Everything went as she expected. The last chapter of the novel is lying peacefully in a drawer. Susan rushed through the pages. Discovered in the final part of the novel, Detective Bond left a suicide note while Susan was lost in her reasoning. At this moment, the boss unexpectedly appeared. He wasn't flustered at all, but told the truth. The boss got the novel on Wednesday. He read everything. Clever. He had already solved the puzzle set by Alan. Alan had always wanted to write profound works. It's not like this mystery novel. Can't stand the ex-wife. Keeps persuading. He could only name the main character Atticus Chongda. Just use the split method again. You can find a new word, a moron. Just a few letters. Readers all over the world who love this series of novels all insulted, also abused all the staff. The boss is very angry. He asked Alan to have dinner with him on Thursday. During the meal, he asked Alan if he could change the name of the book, even if you add 2 words, but Alan didn't want to. Just when the two were arguing about it, Alan's former student met him. After meeting the student, Alan was paralyzed by alcohol, told the secret. His novel uses a word formation, and that's why. Only the boss can uncover this secret. However, while writing The Magpie Murder, Alan was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Seeing the days running out, he decided to do it all the time directly in the final novel. Reveal all the facts in such an implicit way so that he can destroy the books he hates, but the publisher didn't agree with Alan's approach. Because Detective Bond attracts many readers, it can be said that it has supported most of the publishing houses. If Alan is allowed to destroy, then the whole publishing house will also go down with it. So the boss got the idea of killing people. Who knows? On Friday, Alan sent a letter to his boss. In the letter, he apologized for his remarks last night, but this letter not only did not save Alan from disaster, instead, he gave the boss a perfect crime plan. Saturday night, sneaked into Alan's house, found the beard, and came to Alan to borrow money temporarily hidden. That's when he drove away, accidentally left a crease on the grass, and that was a long time ago. The marks Susan saw on Alan's doorstep, then the boss observed, and he's walking to the roof with his beard on. He took the opportunity to film the whole process of the two hugging and picked out the most misunderstood one immediately after he followed Alan to the roof. According to the photo, haven't talked yet. The boss will no longer pretend. He shoved Alan downstairs, then stole Alan's manuscript. He didn't turn on Alan's computer before he left. Delete the novel record from the computer, and he went back to the publishing house. Take out the suicide note from the last chapter of the novel combined with the message sent by Alan apology letter, fake, a phenomenon of Alan's insanity. It also paved the way for his unexpected death. Unfortunately, the handwriting on the envelope cannot be copied. So the boss used printing, and the letters were handwritten. The envelopes are printed. That's kind of weird. This detail was discovered by Susan, but because Alan's popularity is so bad, even if the police found out, and unwilling to launch an investigation into it, the boss dodged a bullet like this. Susan suggested that the boss hurry up and turn himself into the police station, perhaps also reduce the criminal law, but the boss doesn't get oil and salt. He was ostensibly submissive to Susan. In fact, he had the intention to kill Susan, taking advantage of the opportunity for Susan to be treated like this, rush up and knock him down, then, through a fire, burn the novel. The fire is getting bigger. The boss also left with confidence. Now people are gathered, no one can expose him anymore. But he underestimated the explosive power of humans in desperate situations. Susan tried her best to get up. I quickly found the final chapter of the novel, but due to lack of physical strength, he couldn't escape the fire with the manuscript. Seeing this close call, Beard rushed into the fire, escaped here with Susan. The reason why the Beard is here, because he learned earlier the address for sending the photo is the publishing house. Therefore, I also guess that the boss is the murderer. That is to say, at this moment, Susan is facing a murderer, so he can't care about anything else. Come to the publishing house quickly. Fortunately, the rescue was timely. Susan's life is not in danger. The boss went to jail. After this incident, the relationship between Beard and Susan is even stronger. Editing is no longer possible. Susan decided to allow her boyfriend to go abroad to do business together at night. Susan thought of Detective Bond again. This time, he entered with him. The world of the novel was mentioned earlier. Dondi discovered the housekeeper's diary. He suspected that his sister or wife was the murderer, but both denied it. Tongda combined all the information he had found before reached a conclusion. He rallied the crowd and tell everyone the housekeeper did die in an accident, but the Jazz's wife was involved. That day, Jazz's wife made a long-distance call to the housekeeper. The housekeeper hurried to answer the phone accidentally. The wire on the ground tripped and fell to the ground. Then he fell all the way to Laudy. As for the cause of Jazz's death, it was a complete murder at that time. Ronaldinho's younger brother was searching for treasure in the lake, unfortunately drowned in the lake. And after the gardener picked up Ronaldinho's brother, Ronaldinho still rushed into the water, actually because Ronaldinho has always been jealous of his younger brother for getting his parents' favor. I was ignored. So when he saw his brother searching for treasure in the water, an evil thought came to mind. Hold down, your brother drowned him in the lake. The gardener rescued the younger brother. Ronaldinho is soaking wet. He was afraid that his appearance would be discovered by the gardener. Therefore, it is known to be a murderer. Hastily jumped into the water, wet your whole body. What he didn't know was own mother, the butler, is now looking through the window of the cabin. Take the scene of it all into your eyes. This would also explain why was the housekeeper so strict with Ronaldinho later. The housekeeper once persuaded Ronaldinho's girlfriend to stay away from Ronaldinho, also insulted him, said he would defile the blood of the family. Actually, this is not insulting Ronaldinho's girlfriend, he was insulting Ronaldinho. Ronaldinho is so evil by nature. To gain parental preference, I would rather kill my own brother Butler. I don't want to see him give birth to the same vicious child in the future. In that diary, it was also the housekeeper's intention. He was afraid that he would be killed. Write down all the secrets in the diary because he has always respected the Lord. So, he chose to tell the Jazz the secret. He also left a message that if he was killed, please tell everyone the truth about the diary. Soon this was discovered by his son Ronaldinho. The secret of his eggs is revealed. He really gave up on killing his mother, but who would have guessed? Just after the housekeeper died, unexpectedly the crowd still pointed the finger at him. Ronaldinho couldn't help, but remember mother once entrusted a secret to the Jazz, afraid that Jazz would reveal the secret at this moment. So take advantage of the day when there is no one at home. I want to sneak in and steal the letter, but unfortunately sir put the letter in the safe. But he has already entered the Jazz's house. The whereabouts are bound to be discovered. Therefore, in order to reduce their suspicion, Ronaldinho decides to take something, make people think this is an ordinary theft. After stealing something, he threw the antiques into the lake with his backhand. Jazz came home today. Ronaldinho found him and strenuously maintained that he did not kill the housekeeper. The Jazz ignored Ronaldinho He opened the safe and read the contents of the letter. Then I want Ronaldinho to go home, just as the Jazz was about to open the door to see. Off guest Ronaldinho picked up the sword that came. With the armor wave it towards the Jazz, and Jazz goes down. Ronaldinho took the opportunity to take the letter from the safe, then throw it in the fireplace and burn it. Due to the critical situation, Ronaldinho didn't notice a letter on the table. It was a threatening letter from the Jazz's sister to the Jazz. He mistook his Jazz sister's envelope, thrown into the fireplace together. Now only the threatening letter written by the peerless sister is left, contents with the mother's envelope. Ronaldinho has no way, can only count stuff the threatening letter into his mother's envelope. Bond already knew about it. He was impressed by the handwriting on the envelope after reading the housekeeper's diary, and it dawned on him. The case was finally solved, and Detective Bond, after this case, can't bear the burden of the body. The pain of cancer is getting worse and worse. He finally died in the bright green spring.